Good day everyone, and I'm your reporter today. The identification of the historical importance of the text will report by Brian Calsbuta, Nelson Ano, Jonas Acuña, Carlos Catalo, Carlos Joana, Bugasan Jumel, Julian Buraga, Chami Caillas, and Jerome Batul.
Ayon sa artikulo na nabasa ko, mayroon at least 9,000 ang naging biktima ng human rights violation noong taong 1969 hanggang taong 1986. 8 hanggang sa 10 mga lalaking nasa edad na 16 to 40 years old ang mga naging biktima noon, at sa mga babae naman nasa edad na 16 to 30 years old ang mga nabiktima noong panahon ng martial law. Noong panahon ng martial law, nasa bilang na 5,000 ang mga inaresto at kinulong. Nasa 1,000 naman ang mga bilang ng mga sinalvage at pinatay. Ang bilang ng mga biktima ay tumataas noong panahon taon-taong tumataas noong panahon ni Pangulong Marcos, at dahil sa madilim na nakaraan ng Pilipinas, hanggang ngayon ay sariwa pa din sa alaala ng mga biktima ng human rights violation noong panahon ni Pangulong Marcos at sa panahon ng martial law, at hanggang ngayon marami pa ring mga tao ang umaasa sa hustisya.
Who have been affected by the event? The affected of the same event is the people who live in the year of Marcos' presidency, especially the people who see the anomaly of the dictatorship and decided to speak to it. They were the victim of the torture that brought physical, emotional, and trauma to them, and have died, and some still haunted by this past hurt. Why is it important for them? It is important for them to make amends to it and acknowledge or validate that they have been in this worst page. How are people live affected? Do people like to make analogies with it? Others make an analogies of it from our history, where we are also been controlled and silenced for the power of the person who sits on the high chairs, and something that we still does not learn from it, but it is more so that these people is just plain bad, and we don't deserve to be treated like that. Also, in our government on Kapan.
Was the event remarked on by people at this time or since? I believe it will stay remarkable till then. And from those who had those experience before, many Filipinos killed in a number of different ways throughout Marcos' time. With about 12 forms of execution being used, aside from lethal weapons, ordinary objects like as water, pliers, thumbtacks, ballpen, and flat iron were employed to inflict continual and chronic pain that time itself cannot heal. Electric shock, San Juanito Bridge, truth serum, Russian roulette, beating, pistol whipping, water cure, strangulation, cigar burn, pepper torture, and animal treatment are only few of the method they use to murder anyone who oppose them. If we understand how it works, we may conclude that this is not a proper way to punish someone for their crimes during his term. Several individuals, including a girl, have been killed in this manner. Women were also physically abused because patriotism has no gender preference. The brutality of the killings is meant to instill terror in the people striving for a more democratic society. Just as it was in the dark days of colonialism, Filipinos are enduring in killing their own people. The dictatorship of Ferdinand Marcos was not notable for its brutality. Furthermore, many of the persons who were victims of this human rights violation were students and students leader. As a result, I feel there is no need to forget the times when people are suffering, screaming for their life, and asking freedom. We Filipinos will never forget the periods when we did not feel like we had any freedom or that we didn't have any human rights.
I can say that because of the upcoming election and the fact that the son of former President Marcos will run for the president. There are many critics and objections to the candidacy because he is Marcos. Martial law is still being debated today as a result of what happened back then. And it anticipated with the plan to run a president of Bongbong Marcos. Most people, particular victims of President Ferdinand Marcos' so-called constitutional dictatorship, will recall only the negative aspect of martial law. But if historians are to be fair, there were some positive aspect to it as well. It is well known that the tenure of the President Ferdinand Marcos resulted in a radical shift in our Filipino perspective. Every Filipino have a different point of view and tells a different story. But why is former President Marcos' tenure being discussed after until now? And what is his what is in his so-called martial law? Many families claim that the Marcoses' leadership in the country truly caused the Filipino to suffer. Many were tortured and died during the martial law. Their human rights were undoubtedly violated. Their families suffered, and the dictator's family does not even have the decency to apologize or admit to the crimes. On the other hand, many people believe that Marcos's leadership changed our country for the better, and many good things happened during martial law, like curfew was imposed, and yet Filipinos were so disciplined. The young ones did not roam around the night like what they are doing today. And the Philippines that time were called the Tiger of Asia because of high ground of country that the fault of the father cannot be inherited by the son. Words uttered by a Muslim leader who had been an enemy of the former president. Whatever happened in the past, I believe should not be brought up in the present. Martial law has been upside and downside.
Revealing. Does it reveal some other aspects of the past? After reading this article, I don't see any revelation of new information regarding of the past, because all of the information that I read in this article focuses on one topic, and that is the experiences of Filipino people under the leadership of late President Ferdinand E. Marcos Sr.
Does it have consequences for the future? Yes, it has had a significant impact even today, particularly on those who did not live during Marcos' martial law. The consequences of martial law have been so devastating that we are still feeling the effects today. By the time Marcos was ousted from Malacanang, the Philippine economy had suffered as a result of corrupting and heavy borrowing from other countries. We remember, no matter how hard the Marcoses try to us to forget, that thousands were killed or tortured during those times. Their human rights were unquestionably violated, and their families suffered as a result. And one of the hottest topics today is the leadership of Bongbong Marcos' father, or better known as BBM, because Bongbong Marcos will run as a president in the upcoming election. Many people, including young people, are perplexed about what will happen if martial law is restated, or what happened in the past when Bongbong's father was the president repeated. Some people are opposed to voting for Marcos because of what his father did in the past. However, there are those who ignore the issue, but it is still more serious to fight over who they will vote for. Let this serve as a reminder to all for us to never forget, never again.
To answer the question, durability. For how long have people's lives been affected? A day, a week, a year, all of their lives? My answer to that question is it's about 1 decade because Marcos ruled the Philippines from 1970s between 1970s and 1980s. The dictatorship of Philippine President Ferdinand E. Marcos in the 1970s and the 1980s is historically remembered for its record of human rights abuses, particularly targeting political opponents, students, activists, journalists, religious workers, farmers, and others who fought against the Marcos dictatorship. Based on the documentation of Amnesty International, task force detainees of the Philippines and similar human rights monitoring entities, historians believe that the Marcos dictatorship was marked by 3,257 known extrajudicial killings, 35,000 documented tortures, 77 disappeared, and 70,000 incarcerations. Some 2,520 and 3,257 murders, victims were tortured and mutilated before their bodies were dumped in various spaces for the public. To discover a tactic meant to show fear among the public, which came to be as salvaging, some victims were even subjected to cannibalism.
Based on the estimated statistical record of the Nilibis Manos, thousands of people suffered and died during the martial law period. At nagbigay din ng Amnesty International ng bilang o estimated para sa buong panahon ng batas militar, 70,000 nakatawang na bilanggo, 34,000 ang pinahirapan at 3,240 ang pinatay. Hindi lamang ito ang mga numero at imposible mabilang ito dahil ilan sa mga biktima at kanilang pamilya ay pinili na lang manahimik dahil sa takot. Many of them wants justice for their loved ones but they failed to file a case because they think that buhay ang kapalit pag tinuloy nila ang pagkamit ng hustisya.
For profanity is, was the event superficial or deeply affecting? How deeply people's lives were affected, and how are people's lives affected? I answer this of not only did it go deep into the event then because it left them with severe trauma, and on that event, to the victims who spoke in this article, they experienced the psychological, emotional, sexual, and physical torture according to their narrative. So, magbibigay po ako ng mga tao dito na nakaranas po ng mga nabanggit ko kanina, which is yung psychological, emotional, yung physical, and sexual torture. Sa Senator Ramon Mitra po, tuwing 1 AM na madaling araw, gigisingin siya para lamang iparinig sa kanya yung mga putok ng baril at pagtapos, ibabalik siya sa selda upang magpahinga. At upang mapanatili pa din po niya ang kanyang katinuan, magbibigkas siya ng mga tula or kakanta ng mga kanta, ngunit yung mga pulis iniisip na siya ay nabaliw na. Ayon nga daw po sa kanyang salaysay, inilagay siya sa isang kahon at ang tanging meron lamang daw sa kanyang katawan ay ang kanyang salawal, panloob at isang damit na t-shirt. Hindi rin niya tinatanggap ang pagkain dahil baka daw siya ay lasunin at siya lamang ang mag-isa sa kanyang silid kung saan siya dito ay ikinulong. Wala siyang magawa sa kanyang kalagayan kundi ang magbilang ng oras at araw, buwan at dito niya naramdaman yung lungkot, which is yung emotional torture po.
Thank you all. In the context and content will report by Kurt Macho Albendia, Joshua Ayabyab, Nicole Asaitono, Joshua Barameda, Giselle Centelias, Lera Ray Biscoro, Vincent Badaan, and Aldrin Jan Anabel.
Audio Jungle.
Who is the author of the preliminary source, and what do you know about the author that may shape his or her perspective? So the author of the preliminary source is Michael Charleston Briones Chua. His writing of the article makes us understand on how in that particular history affects our lives and changed our world forever. Now, the thing about the author of the article that he wrote is that it's not just the martial law, it's all about on how the history of the Philippines shaped our lives forever, and on how he perceives that and conceptualizes the history towards of our country. You know, he was the one who did visualize, and not just visualize, he also understands meticulously and carefully in terms of writing an article like that, or a fact-based article like that. So the thing about what every history that shaped our lives forever is that it can make us understand more, and when we read about that article, it can try to take us. It's like taking us back where it all happened, and then we wanted to understand and what we wanted to, and we wanted to give the that our sayings and our beliefs in that certain type of history that the author wrote, and that thing about history is that every historian said that it must never be forgotten, and us people, we have a right to know what happened in the past. And that's the thing about, finding and searching and investigating history was like.
Question number 2. Who's the intended audience of the primary source? For me, there's no specific audience for this article because the author's goals most likely are to raise self-awareness for the Filipino citizen, especially who were not born during this era, on the important events on our society and the history that happens during the Marcos regime.
Where or when was the primary source published or created? The article of Haring Bayan, Democracy and People Power in the Philippines was created by Michael Charleston Briones Chua, and it was published on June 20, 2012. Based on the article written by Chua, it does not mention where it was published or created.
The question is, describe the historical context. What was happened during this event or time period? First, I will describe the historical context. The article of Haring Bayan, Democracy and People Power in the Philippines was created by Michael Charleston Briones Chua, and it was published on June 20, 2021. What was happened during this event or time period? Proclamation of martial law. It was established by September 21, 1972, and this is the day that Marcos' dictatorship began. This is also allowed Marcos to control his own term. Marami ang nagalit kay Marcos dahil sa pagiging diktador nito sa Pilipinas, and may sikreto siyang pinirmahan na dinedeklara na niya ang martial law. Ang martial law po is hindi lang naman siya puro bad effect, may good effect din po ito sa Pilipinas, and ang pansin ko lang po is parang puro bad effect ang pinapakalat ng ibang tao, and di nila sinasama ang good effect nito. Pangit lang po dito is nawawala na po ng kalayaan ng mga Pilipino na gawin ang kanilang gusto, and ayun lang po.
Based on my observation on the article that I read, people power peaceful ouster of an autocratic 1-1 rule for a new democratic government, but its spirit has always been embedded in the very root idea of democracy from the Greek demokrasya. Demos means people and krasia means leadership or power. Philippine Civic Action Group, evidence of the Philippines being an American neo-colony and lack of independency. Kabataang Makabayan, founded by Jose Maricison, which became one of the many youth organizations that September 21, 1971. The society were sick, lots of injured people. Marcos declared martial law. Appropriate parallelism. Marcos will be the only one who will rule. Think and decide for the country. Weapons. Weapons of the week. These were black ribbons, flower in the student pocket, lightning rallies, and many more. It was symbol of protest of the students. Unity. In the declaration of martial law. Gift. Senator Jose Diokno said, "A nation for our children, and we can only assure that our children will not suffer the same darkness if we tell these stories and remember those who fell in the dark of night. Never forget, never again."
What sentiment, attitude, or feeling do you think the author is trying to convey? Through the source, what based on the source can you infer about the historical event or time period? Before everything, I would go as far as to say that the author wanted to us know more about freedom and what Andres Bonifacio wanted to do, and also about how the first term started and how Marcos treated as the child of Filipinos, which also says that here that whoever was guilty of rape was arrested even without a warrant of arrest, and they were tortured and killed them. Marcos has a plan to kill Saba to able to kill that. Marcos recruited other young people are involved in the protest that Marcos is said to be a dictator and a puppy or so on, and the people who protest was being noticed by the police and chased them. Now it's going to be my pleasure to explain to you that people are using social media to criticism the government, churches, also fight for freedom of the people. What happened here was the first Labor Day rally under martial law. It was violently dispersed, and it was reported that the authorities used guns when smoke cleared. There were 10 dead, 200 wounded. The situation was no better for many ordinary Filipinos. Corruption from the top end. Heavy borrowing took their toll. Poverty was symbolized by the image of a king, and neglected on that day Filipinos showed their love for democracy by protecting the ballot boxes to themselves, not letting anyone get it even under threat and violence. Some even dying in the process. People power was our greatest moment in the history of the world. Yet, we have remained undeveloped after a quarter century. Many times the victory of people power was being claimed by one sector, the military, the church, the United States. In general, it can be said that the author wanted us to know about the historical events of the Philippines and to us Filipinos. What happened during martial law and how we come over it. I must say that is a historical event which I can explain that the whole text of our part is saying that what happened during the time of Marcos and how martial law affected us people and how we overcome to it.
What about the source makes you curious? None, because the information given is well stated and in chronological order before the event occurred, during, and after. So, kasi kung babasahin natin yung article tsaka yung sources, makikita natin yung mga date kung kailan ito na-publish at makikita natin dito ang konteksto mula sa proklamasyon ng martial law, paano ba nagsimula yung people's power, at ano ba ang mga hakbang na ginawa nila at kung paano natapos at paano nakamit ang demokrasya. What additional information would you need to know in order to deepen your understanding of the ideas expressed in the source. To deepen my understanding, I need to understand both sides of the story because the ideas expressed in the source is one-sided for me because not all Filipinos who experience Marcos regimen is mad or holding a grudge against them, and some of them are even saying that Marcos is the best president. So if I could get some information on the other side, that would explain a lot. So gusto kong malaman yung side ng mga naka-experience ng martial law pero hindi galit kay Marcos. Siguro kung makukuha natin yung side nila, magkakaroon ng kaliwanagan tungkol sa ano ba talaga yung mga nangyari noon.
Explanation. From the article of Haring Bayan, Democracy and People Power in the Philippines, the words from the article are what happened in the past and narrate what people experienced during the past event. These articles also tell us of the days when the laws were declared. According to the article of Haring Bayan, the gift was meaning itself of handog ng Pilipino sa mundo. In those 4 days, we'd show the world that value of kabutihang loob that is in the Filipino culture. So here's contained the Filipino cultures, which are pananampalataya, pakikipagkapwa, pakikiramay, pagiging masyahin, bayanihan, pagiging mapayapa, and pagiging malikhain.